as ever, as in the situation in Gaza, it is not clear how much skin President Trump and America are actually going to commit to this game, and they may, certainly in the case of the Ukraine war, be looking to make money out of it.
There are some very difficult questions for the Prime Minister's team about his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. Adam Boulton is joining us now to go through all of the politics. Morning, Adam.
Okay.
Should we start with Morgan McSweeney? Because when we asked Pat McFadden earlier about it, he said he has full confidence in McSweeney. But some of the emails that we've read, some of the detail in those emails look quite difficult for the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff.
Yeah, although it's a question of intent rather than doing anything wrong. I mean, what this is all about is that Morgan McSweeney was the head of an organisation called Labour Together, which raised a great deal of money, some £700,000. And Morgan McSweeney clearly was running this in parallel to the Labour Party and wasn't particularly keen about this money being counted as political donations to the Labour Party, which, of course, are limited in law. He basically sought advice as to whether he could argue that this wasn't donations to the Labour Party, and he got this advice back from the Labour solicitor, who incidentally is now a member of the House of Lords, saying that actually he more or less had to admit it, and that he ought to say that it was an administrative error because he hadn't met the deadlines of the Electoral Commission. And that happened, and he was fined. So really the attack now coming from the Conservatives and revealing the emails that were exchanged is about Morgan McSweeney's honesty and his intent, and we shall see. I think if the Electoral Commission said we're going to look into this again, that would be very bad news for Morgan McSweeney. But we are in a sort of killing time, a killing field at the moment, where the integrity, first of all, of Angela Rayner, then Peter Mandelson, were targeted by the opposition and the opposition media, which we can pretty much say the Daily Mail and others, and that of course led to them falling. So it's not great for Morgan McSweeney to find himself in this situation when, as you say, he should be helping the Prime Minister prepare for a major fight back at the party conference.
Yeah, and one of the key lines in those emails that we picked out this morning was where there is a conversation with the legal advisor about whether they could winkle out, quote, winkle out the details of a conversation that McSweeney had with the Electoral Commission, trying to work out exactly what was said and at what point in time. And the quote is, without raising suspicions. So I think there are probably going to be some more questions to answer there for Morgan McSweeney. And as you say, we are heading rapidly towards Labour's conference. Adam, are you hearing anything about a speech by the Prime Minister ahead of that conference? It doesn't usually happen ahead of the conference, but some people are suggesting there might be one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very odd thing. Sometimes, particularly when parties need attention, you get a speech either coming just before the conference or a kind of opening address to supporters at the party conference. That may well happen. We're, of course, going to be there on Sunday, so we'll find out if there is any action there. I think what's really interesting at the moment is that Keir Starmer has basically gone to ground this week, preparing for the Labour conference. And of course, he's doing it at a time when you would normally expect the Prime Minister to have gone to the United Nations General Assembly and to be a figure on the world stage. And I think that's because, as it were, he wanted to bank the successful visit by Donald Trump to the UK last week, not get drawn into the latest stuff from Donald Trump attacking Sadiq Khan, attacking Europe and Europe's values. But, a lot of his own supporters, including those who've been speaking up last night, like Rupa Huq, would expect a pretty robust defence of the London mayor, and that doesn't seem to be happening at the moment.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point you raised there. Just finally, to touch on that UN General Assembly conference, the Prime Minister has not attended, but obviously Donald Trump has. We were also focusing this morning on his remarks about Ukraine. We've been sent this voice message from Alexander Merezko. He's the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee in the Ukrainian Parliament. He's optimistic but cautious about what Donald Trump said.
It's a huge progress because it's the first time when Trump recognizes that Ukraine is not losing the war, that it might win the war, but it needs adequate support. So basically, it's a huge shift on the Trump stance, and it's, of course, a welcome move. But at the same time, it's not clear yet from this statement whether Trump is ready to deliver on his previous promise and to employ sanctions, serious sanctions against Russia and against Russian allies which buy from Russia oil and gas. And also, it's not quite clear whether or not Trump has stopped viewing Russian aggression against Ukraine as a solely European security issue. Or maybe he's starting to understand that it's also issue of security of the US concern.
And that's the key part, isn't it, Adam? Whether or not Donald Trump recognises that he does have a role to play here. How do you read his comments overnight?
Yeah, I think it's certainly significant that he's now basically saying the Russians are the baddies. It's also interesting, and presumably he has access to American security assessments, that he believes now that Ukraine is not necessarily slowly losing this war. But, and there's a big but here, remember that Donald Trump has basically said this is Europe's problem. Also remember that he has struck a new arrangement whereby European countries can buy American weaponry, Germany in particular in the lead in that, rather than America contributing to the NATO effort. So at one level, what he was doing yesterday was saying to the Europeans, it's over to you. This could be won if you're prepared to spend the money and the effort to win it. And of course, he was also pointing out that many European countries are still, one way or another, getting Russian energy, Russian oil and gas, and, you know, basically saying that's hypocritical if you're committed to this particular war, as you should be, then you shouldn't be giving Russia euros for its energy. So, you know, as ever, as in the situation in Gaza, it is not clear how much skin President Trump and America are actually going to commit to this game. And they may, certainly in the case of the Ukraine war, be looking to make money out of it.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Adam. Thank you, as ever. Great to have you with us. That is Times Radio's Adam Boulton, who will be there at the Labour Party conference on Sunday with his programme from 10 o'clock. And we'll be there too with Times Radio Breakfast, of course, on Monday.